Well, when we were at DAS, what we were always told to do was to sit in a circle with three people, and we'd put our arms like this, I think, and hold hands, or this, and we'd hold crossed hands, and the two people that had the problem would be told by the mediator to tell their sides of the stories, and from that the mediator would have to interpret it, see where the differences were, see how the stories conflicted, and from that try to come to agreement of what rationally actually happened, not what the two people actually thought, and then come to some sort of compromise through it. One thing I vaguely recall was sitting in a circle and having discussions. I believe she orchestrated that to teach us to all sit in a circle, and because we're all equal distances away from the middle and no one actually has a set of power. It seems kind of trivial now, but when you think about it with kids, it seems a bit more important. It seems like it would work a bit better. But we all sat in a circle and we would take turns speaking. Sometimes she would pass around objects and she would say that only whoever's holding the marker or whoever's holding the feather is the only person who gets to talk, and everyone else has to show them respect and listen. And I think it did wonders because, I mean, it's worked for us, and a lot of us are still very obedient to this day with that. The memory I have farthest back is probably of us sitting in a circle and talking things out. I don't actually remember the actual peacekeeping idea and getting it told to us. I remember that in later grades, but I mean, I'm sure it happened in senior kindergarten. I just can't quite recall it. But I do remember it taking a lot more effect in grades 1, 2, and 3, especially with Lori. She stressed that very highly.
And how did that happen? Like, how did she do it? When did it come up, in class or what?
Yeah, in class or whenever there was problems out in the yard. She would always say that we'll have two people and a mediator, and one person who's supposed to be non-judgmental and unbiased. And the two people would each tell their side of the story, and then the mediator would then kind of elaborate both sides of the story and see where each part of the stories differed and how and where the mistakes were made, and if it could be corrected, and if not, then it was just supposed to go to the teacher if it was serious. But she wanted us to try and do it with ourselves first.
And do you remember doing that, being in a conflict or being
Yes.
a mediator? What do you remember?
There were conflicts. I remember a lot of times I tended to be the mediator, but there were times when I got in conflicts. I remember we'd get in conflicts about a big thing back then was excluding other people from playing in the yard. So if one group was playing handball or basketball or tag or hide and go seek and other people were left out, a lot of times back then that was very harmful to people's feelings. And I think that that was probably the biggest thing that had peacekeeping and needed to be resolved, because kids can be quite mean and they don't really think about how the other person's going to be feeling. So they'll just do things to make them self-empowered. And it turns out to be hurtful. But we worked on it, and I think it was a great experience for me because it's helped me to this day. We had a lot of talk about bullying, and I don't think we had sort of a lot of bullying that you see or on TV shows nowadays, and the whole like gang of one clique coming and pushing another people or a person around. I don't think we had that so much, but there was some making fun of, and I guess it could be called bullying. So one group maybe making fun of another or constantly excluding them. There was some of that. I think I was excluded in a few things, but then again, sometimes I might have turned around and done the same thing to other people. But I think it was just a growing experience going through all of that, and it hurt to be bullied, and I think realizing that tried to stop you from doing it to other people. We also had school assemblies, and there we had demonstrations of peacemaking, and we talk about that. So that was probably the largest kind of peacemaking-oriented thing. We had assemblies about peacemaking. I went into Laurie's class during grade 1. I visited a lot in senior kindergarten because I liked Laurie and I liked the students she had, and I think I was put fully into her class in grade 1. I remember we had large styrofoam bricks that were green and yellow or red and yellow, and they had different shapes. They had ones in the semicircle or one long ones, and there weren't that many long ones, but we always used to fight over them because they were kind of coveted. And we'd make seesaws sometimes by putting the long ones on the semicircle ones and just going back and forth. We never made intricate structures because we were always breaking them down pretty quickly. It seemed to me more fun. But yeah, I remember it. It was good fun.
watch, they're watching. No, we have a remote. Oh yeah. And we watch all the time and see if there's any bad guys, and if the door's open and there's bad guys, we go play. This is getting tricky, you guys. But don't they fight the bad guys? No. Why not? They're like this, and this is like this. But we're not playing. Bad. Get to this. No, but pretend. Hey, that's just Bill. Hey, Merrick. Merrick. This is not play. This is building. Don't. This is building, Merrick, not play. This is building, Merrick, not play. Like the point on the cat. I didn't mean to fight. I don't like fighting.
The one thing I remember, which I hate to say, was I always remember loving school and looking forward to go to school when I was in senior kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, even grade 4. But when it came to grade 5 and grade 6, most of the teachers I had grown up with had left, and we were stuck with other teachers that I didn't particularly like. So I found that going to school in grades 5 and 6 started to get a bit tedious, and I didn't enjoy it as much as when in senior kindergarten 1, 2, and 3. And also the whole conflict resolution, peacemaking thing seemed to disappear. It was very, very strongly stressed in the earlier grades to always resolve things through conflict resolution. But in later grades, either the teachers didn't stress it because they hadn't been there before and no one taught them about it, or they just didn't care about it because they didn't really stress it at all. We definitely stopped doing it in the 3-person method. We didn't do that anymore. I think we had to cross hands and link arms, and after grade 4 we just found that a little juvenile, so we stopped doing that. But there may have been some conflict resolution in other ways, talking it through, and not necessarily with the mediator, but just 2 people talking it through, and that would have been our conflict resolution, but it definitely wasn't the same as before. When I was in grade 3 or 4, the grade 6 students, if we saw a fight, would try to come over and help us. They were really great like that. They would tell us to explain both sides and everything, and I in turn remembered doing that to younger kids when I was in the older grades. So it definitely was there. It didn't happen not often, but it was definitely there. And if there was a major problem, other kids would help out, because even though we were kids at the time, I think we had a sense of right and wrong and what to do in those cases. When I get back with my group of friends now that I went to DAS with, we always reminisce. And there are always things we like talking about, and there's always things we find fun. And because of that, I think we have similar interests in some areas even now. None of us are particularly violent, which is something that I think the conflict resolution peacemaking helped with. So none of us are violent at all. In terms of hobbies and what we now enjoy and stuff on that topic, I think we've all evolved. But I think it was more the basic fundamentals of how to resolve conflicts and stuff that we share. A lot of the kids who are there from senior kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2 are fairly articulate with how they feel, even if they don't like to be. But it's something that I guess comes naturally to us now, because the one thing they did make us do a lot was express it and always talk it out and talk it through. And as annoying as it may sound, I guess it helps us for later life, because we are able to articulate ourselves and how we feel and what to do about the subject. And I guess one other thing we share, thinking back about people like Quinn and Molly and some of the other people like that, is they tend to take a leadership role in terms of solving problems. So they'll be the first to step up and say, okay, what's the matter? How can we fix this? And ask questions about the problems. I think we had certainly evolved, and we took that technique with us, and it changed. Certainly now I still do conflict resolutions, but I don't sit with 2 other people and hold their hands while they talk things through. Now we have different techniques to do it. We'll ask them how they feel maybe, or even manipulation, just to see how to resolve the conflict in a way that's not harmful to either people. We certainly still did it then, but definitely not the same way we used to. I know personally, this must sound a bit hypocritical, but I oftentimes will not speak about my emotions or stuff like that. I'm always the first to help other people's with their emotions and stuff, but I don't personally like thinking about and talking about my own because I think it puts me at a bit of a vulnerable state. I do hope that in future when I grow older, maybe 20s, 30s, 40s, it will become more acceptable for guys to talk about their feelings and how they interact. But as of now, I still think that the culture and our social structure puts a lot of pressure on guys to be macho and not to do this, like not to talk about that, not to cry, not to do any of that. And it is pressure, and a lot of people live by it. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but it's what it is. It's just something we have to face. I think that guys, they don't mature as fast as girls, psychologically anyway. So I do not think that they're as open to express their feelings. And unfortunately, even now, when it comes later, I think our culture has made it so guys are supposed to be, they're not supposed to show emotions. They're supposed to be strong and physical, so they're prone to resolve their conflicts through physicality and violence, whereas girls can be emotional and are supposed to be emotional and therefore talk it through. I don't necessarily think this is right, but that certainly seemed to be what happened. I can remember always the girls were the first ones to step up and say, why don't we talk about this? Now, I'm not saying the guys were violent. They weren't always violent. They just like to displace their anger and not talk about it, whereas the girls would be the first to say, okay, come on, sit down, let's talk about this, let's try to get this better, let's try to make it work before it turns into anything worse. I guess a lot of times nowadays there's sort of the guy mentality where, you know, you need to show your testosterone and how macho you are by sometimes fighting a guy, and in that case it's probably just best to walk away. Very few times have I gotten someone angry enough to actually fight or hit me, but I don't think I've ever actually engaged. I've never actually fought someone in my life, seriously. But when there is a violent conflict, sometimes it's best just to walk away. Other times, if there's a group of people there, it's probably just best to talk with them because they don't want to fight someone who has other people with them because they're outnumbered, and I guess that's just basic instinct. So you either walk away or just talk it through with them.
Even if someone takes a poke at you, you still would just back away?
Yeah. I don't think if someone hit me, I would engage in a fight unless I felt seriously threatened. But a lot of times also people just hit for fun, which is also good. But I can only remember once or twice in my life being hit seriously, and either then I just went to a person of power or ran away.
Have you witnessed a violent physical fight?
Yes. I've witnessed violent physical fights, even at DAS actually. And it was scary at the time, but thinking back, it was over such trivial matters that it could have been averted easily just by talking about it.
How did it make you feel to see people fighting?
I guess I was just scared at the time because it was something I hadn't really experienced in DAS at all. I remember maybe seeing 2 fights in all of my time at DAS, which was kind of scary at the time because I never knew what it was, and people are angry. Obviously they're angry and upset, and they were even going after each other to hurt each other. So it seemed very serious at the time, and now looking back it doesn't seem as serious because no one actually got hurt. But when you're younger and there's bigger, older people fighting, you just kind of get scared. When I first came to Horizon, I found myself kind of clinging to the DAS students because that's what people I've known for 8 years. And it was very good, but it seemed that after that, a lot of us went in different directions. I think that's something DAS geared us for, is to be ourselves and just to be able to change in whatever way we wanted to. But now I know that some of the people from DAS are what you might call goths or punks or skaters, and other people are more kind of conservative in their manner of socializing. So we started off together, but then we split apart, and it's kind of scary to see, like, when I go visit Courtney now, who's, I wouldn't say gothic, but she's certainly a bit more dark, and my first memories of her are her coming in a cute pink dress and something she wouldn't be caught dead in now. It just seems really weird how different we've grown, but how much we've changed as well. Right now I'm in grade 10 at Jarvis Collegiate. I'm having a great time there. I've got about an 87 average. I play on a lot of sports teams. I played on about 6 this year, 5 or 6, and I'm just having a great time. And what's really different about Jarvis is there's a lot more people there. DAS had, I think, 130 cap, and then Horizon had less, like had 55 in grade 8. And you go to Jarvis, which has 1,300 people there. And at first it was a bit of a smack in the face, but it's been so fun getting to know everyone. And just now that I have this knowledge of conflict resolution and everything, I don't find myself in one group. I have friends all over the school, different ages, different grades, different genders, walks of life, different races, and I think it's great. I'm not just hanging with one group of people. I'm all over the place. I'm just having a ball, like socializing. Right now, in my life, I'm just looking to have a great time at school, socialize with my friends. I want to get through school with a high average, but more important is that it's just hanging around, meeting new people, spending time with friends, because when it all boils down, friends are something I'm going to have all my life, and school is something that's going to end in about 7 years. So while I need the school, I think friends and relationships and learning how to interact with people is much more important than school in itself. So I'm just trying to have a great time with my friends, meet new people, learn how to interact with all sorts of people. And that's one thing that's really interested me, is how people's minds work. And I certainly think that that came from DAS, learning how to resolve issues, because you can't really know how to resolve an issue with someone unless you know how that someone thinks. So that's driven me to become, I guess, a bit more of a conflict resolver. So now it's something that always fascinates me, how people's mind works, how they think, what they're going to react to. I plan to, after Jarvis, go to U of T and study psychology and philosophy maybe, and then go into law. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, a corporate lawyer.